to explain.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi and the entire Democratic leadership team have put out the strongest statement that anybody could put out condemning the Congresswoman. Of course, Congresswoman continues to peddle anti-Semitic tropes, but she released a joint statement calling the resolution historic, adding, quote, "At a time when extremism is on the rise, we must explicitly denounce religious intolerance of all kinds and acknowledge the pain felt by all communities." And I hope that means, I really do, I hope that means that her anti-Semitic tropes will come to an end. She's doing it far too much, and if she continues, you can only conclude that she knows exactly what she's doing, because if it continues, if her anti-Semitic tropes continue, then she will be doing exactly what people like David Duke and neo-Nazis on the far right do with their anti-Semitic tropes. I'm sure she won't do that. I'm sure that yesterday will be actually a very moving experience for her, and she's talking about condemning racism and bigotry for people of all faiths and all races. Maybe yesterday was a teachable moment, as they say. Let's bring in right now the author and the founder of Women for Women International, Zainab Salbi. She's the executive producer and host of Through Her Eyes on Yahoo News, and also Washington bureau chief for USA Today, Susan Page. Zainab, let's start with you. A resolution condemning all forms of bigotry and hatred. Fantastic. At the same time, I'll just say it. I was very moved when these two Muslim women were elected. I thought, especially given all of Donald Trump's anti-Muslim statements, his Muslim registry proposal, his Muslim ban proposal, the hostility that he has shown towards Muslims throughout his entire political life, I thought these two women could be great role models and examples of, e pluribus unum, out of many one. It's been a rocky start, hasn't it, for Representative Omar?
It has, but I still believe they can still actually be as great as you would want them to be and you wish for them to be. I recently interviewed Representative Omar on Through Her Eyes on Yahoo News, and I asked her not about anti-Semitism, I asked her about the core issue, which is how to actually get just and lasting peace between Israelis and the Palestinians, because that's ultimately what is at stake and what we really need to discuss. And it's not only me who's thinking that. Is Jeremy Ben Ami from J Street. It's a lot of Jewish leaders who are saying that's the core issue, that we need to find language about it. Now, in her answer, she says that we need to treat Israel and its neighbors, including the Palestinians, equally. And for her, that meant, for example, that she applies BDS, boycott and sanctions against Israel, divestment against Israel, equally to her call on BDS against Saudi Arabia. She is critical of Israel passing, and Netanyahu's government passing last year, a law that changed the foundations.
Right. I understand all that, Zainab, right. And there are a lot of Jews in America that feel the same way that she does on Netanyahu's government. At the same time, though, does she have to question somebody's loyalty because, like me, they're pro-Israel? Does she have to talk about how Jewish money is buying elections and people vote a certain way just to get Jewish money, which of course is preposterous because the Saudis have so much more money and other governments throughout the Middle East have, the UAE, they have so much more money. So this whole trope, this whole Jew money trope is preposterous, it's anti-Semitic, and it goes back centuries.
I agree, and I also believe her apology. I believe her acknowledgement. I think she, and I think a lot of people on both sides, Muslims and Jewish people on both sides, need to articulate new language, because we both have the capabilities of trapping into old rhetoric that is insulting and hurtful and dangerous and prejudiced. And so we all do need to develop a new language language on how to address the issue. And so I do believe her apology, and I do believe she's actually trying to learn about what is this new language is. But I think that applies to all of us. How do we address what is at core, which is the Israeli and Palestinian peace? We need peace in the region. You know, I was there in December in the West Bank, and I did not meet politicians intentionally. I met teachers, principals, students, women's rights activists, and what I learned is that there were hundreds of millions of dollars cut actually in aid to these civilians. Honestly, I did not want to meet with the politicians. I feel to build peace, we need to talk to the civilians. And what they were saying ultimately is that Palestinian classrooms right now has 60 students because $300 million in aid was cut through UNRWA and through USAID. They're scrambling. We need to address, these are the core issues. We need to go to them.
Yes. We can't do that, though, if she's sounding like a white nationalist talking about Jews moving into their neighborhoods, or talking like David Duke would talk about Jewish money. I mean, Sam, we saw this from Donald Trump and the Star of David over Hillary Clinton's face. We've seen this from white nationalists all along. We've seen this from anti-Semitic bigots again, talking about international bankers for decades. For centuries, and just maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm being too tough on Representative Omar right here, someone who I really, really want to succeed badly, because it actually shows what kind of nation we are. If she succeeds and other Muslims succeed, and this Muslim Americans succeed, and it proves Donald Trump to be wrong. So nobody's rooting for her more than I am, but Sam, isn't this like the third or fourth time she's engaged in these type of tropes? Hasn't she already had 3 or 4 teachable moments, and she just keeps going driving through the barricades?
So it's at least the second. We know that because this is the second condemnation she's gotten from her House colleagues. You know, we had this conversation yesterday. The people who argue that she was not engaging in anti-Semitic tropes are wrong. They're factually wrong. What she was doing, whether consciously or subconsciously, was in fact taking these